Hello, welcome back to Asian Cinema Season 2 and another Hirokazu Kore-eda review from 2018, his most recent film, Shoplifters. So I've already seen this, so I'm watching it for the second time. You hadn't seen it before, obviously, so we just watched it about an hour ago, finished, and I'm so glad I watched this film again. When I first saw it, I thought it was really, really good, but I wasn't quite seeing the hype. It came with a lot of attention. I think it won some awards at film festivals, people naming it their film of the year, masterpiece and everything. I was just, I don't quite see it. And I think because in this film there's a little bit of a twist. Not so well. I guess there is a twist, but like the tone of the film really changes at a certain point, and I wasn't prepared for it at all when I first watched it. So it was kind of jarring to me. But now that I knew what to expect, I enjoyed this film so much more. So I think it's best for us to do a brief spoiler-free section because I think to really talk about this film, you need to talk about everything that happens in the film.
Yeah.
So the very basic premise is there is a family who are living kind of a dysfunctional family. There's kind of different generations going on there. And there's a father and his wife and a young boy, maybe in her 20s woman, I would say.
Yeah.
And then an older grandmother who's probably around 70, 80. So it's different generations and so on, and they steal. They shoplift. A very opening scene of the film, you have the father and his son, Shota, is that how you would pronounce it?
Shota.
I forget all the other names anyway, so it doesn't really matter about the names of the characters, but they're kind of stealing. He has this little ritual he does with his fingers, where he does this and then does that. It's kind of like a little... what do you make of that whole kind of...
I don't know, maybe a good luck charm?
Yeah, it's like a kind of,
because why else would he do it?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't...
I think it's kind of like, just please let this... Or what was it like that? Like, please let this go through, like make me actually manage to do this without getting caught.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't like literally or physically help him in any way, shape or form. It's just a kind of a mental thing, I suppose. And just
they do a lot of prayers and so on in Japan and so on. It's a lot about like good luck and so on. So.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the only reason I could think of it.
Yeah.
Because it causes, I mean, it makes you want to look at the kid when someone stands and just all of a sudden...
Right, yeah.
And do, it's kind of like, I'm about to do this.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I work in a shop, and if I saw a kid kind of going like that, I'd be really suspicious,
Yeah, but like, what you doing?
Or at least not suspicious, like, what's he doing? Just kind of interested. So I guess in terms of like the literalness of it in the movie, perhaps it doesn't quite work, but I like the idea of it in a film where you're kind of just seeing this kind of, he's been doing this a while. So you understand that. I mean, he's maybe 8, 9, 10, something like that. But you immediately establish this is something he's very kind of familiar with at this point. And the main kind of storyline is that they're walking home after stealing a few things for dinner, and they see a young girl on a balcony on her own. She's been shut out of the apartment, and it's alluded to that they've seen her before. And so they go, let's just take her home and give her something to eat, because she seems hungry and pretty kind of sad.
It was cold.
And it was cold as well. And they go to take her home, and they hear the parents arguing. The mother very clearly saying, I didn't want her to begin with. And
she's screaming because she's been hit by the guy.
Yes. So it's an abusive relationship. They don't really want the kid. And so this family, this shoplifting family, they decide, well, we're going to kind of take her back for a little bit. And then they ultimately let the girl decide, do you want to stay with us? And then they keep kind of justifying it. It's like, well, this is kidnapping. No, it's not. It's, it's fine.
We're not asking for a ransom.
We're not asking for a ransom, right? And so it's like, and ultimately the girl does decide to stay. She makes that choice. And then the news comes out on the news, literally, that this girl has been missing, but the parents never reported her missing. It was only the welfare that found out like 2 months later. And then they launched the investigation. They think the parents have done something. So that's when they fully decide to commit and bring this girl into the family. They cut her hair short. They give her a new name. And she's happy with this. And that's kind of the genesis of the storyline of the film. So watching it again, I loved it. It really is just a great film. And it's a lot to do with the performances. They're very natural again. The chemistry is really there with all the characters, which... I find often it's hard for me to read chemistry in foreign films with foreign. I mean, maybe with you it's different because you understand some Japanese and you might be able to read that a little bit better.
Yeah, but
maybe.
Body language is more or less the same either way.
I suppose.
It's just that the way they do their lines, maybe.
Sure.
The tone of the voice and so on, that might be a bit difficult for you to pick up when they actually have conversations.
Yeah.
But the body language, that's universal.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, I guess that's fair. That really carries it. And Kirin Kiki, who plays the grandmother, I mean, she's a Kore-eda kind of regular, I think, since Still Walking. And she's just so great. And it was when I first saw this, I thought, this can't be Kirin Kiki. She looks so different because of her teeth. I don't know whether her teeth fell out. She took them out for the film. But in other films, her face looks quite different, you know. But when with no teeth, it's like the jaw looks different. But this is a really kind of poignant performance from her because I think it was her final performance, or at least one of, and she died last year, you know, the year of the film's release. And, you know, her character kind of faces mortality a little bit, so I found that kind of touching, I guess. I think when I first saw this, she was still alive, and so now, you know, it's kind of a little bit different. But I think it's a very good kind of last, or one of the last performances for sure. You know, she's a very, I don't know, she's an integral part of the film, even if she isn't one of the main characters per se. And I really liked all of her scenes. Very, very briefly, Connie did not appreciate her eating habit, which is kind of I liked that trait. It's this very old woman with like hardly any teeth. And when she eats, she really like wraps her lips around it, and she just doesn't really give a shit about eating, you know, nicely or anything. So
everything she ate looked so slimy as well. It was actually a scene where I didn't catch everything they said because I physically couldn't look at the screen.
Yeah.
Because it made me feel a little sick. It was just, it's like, it's possible to put everything in your mouth and then just chew it with the teeth that you have, or just keep your mouth closed. But why do you have to turtle your way through the food? And and the sounds and the way her mouth kind of like...
All right, I said when we watched the film, let's not do 4 minutes on her eating. You've made your point.
It was just probably 60% of her scenes was of her eating. Come on. But there was the scene where she was playing pachinko. And I actually went, oh, so you can afford that, can you? And she turns and she looks at the camera and goes, shh. And I'm like, you cheeky bastard. And then she smiles at the camera. And it's like the timing of everything. It's just like, I felt like she heard me in a way.
It was like she was replying to you in a sense.
And it was just like, because that's the way we're supposed to react when we see her spend all her money gambling. And she's turning and looking like that. And I'm just like, this is brilliant. It's, you know, it's the way you're supposed to react as well.
Yeah. And
so that was enjoyable.
Yeah, there's just so many great moments in the film. I'm really taken with it. I'm so glad I watched it again. But like the main father, Lily Frankie, who is another kind of Kore-eda regular, he's just a really good kind of character actor, and I love his character. He's this, like, the very beginning of the film, he's like, oh, maybe I should like email in to work to say I'm sick or whatever, and he's like, you can tell he doesn't want to go to work. And then he hurts his leg. He comes home, oh, I've hurt my leg. And part of me thinks he did it on purpose, or he's faking it. You know, he just doesn't want to work.
Yeah, it was very random that it happened on the day.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, you gave me bad luck. He's going and all this. And then...
he found her nail.
But excuse me, but there's the real sense of this weird family unit. And you're not quite sure who's who, or who's really who's related to who, or things like that. It's a little bit unclear at the beginning. That becomes clearer as the film goes on. But there's I don't know, it's kind of, I don't want to say it's a loss of morality, but, you know, they steal. But they do it out of necessity, I suppose. But like, even the grandmother is very kind of freewheeling with it. When they decide to keep the young girl, they go out clothes shopping for her, and the grandma's like, all right, get that in the bag. You know, she's just very upfront about it. Even to the point where the grandmother goes to visit the family of her late husband.
Yeah.
But it's the family of her late husband's like mistress that he cheated on her with. So she goes there to guilt these people into giving her money. And there's a great scene where she gets the money in an envelope, and she's like, oh, okay, well, thank you. Like, there's no like, oh, no, you don't have to.
She
like,
counts it afterwards. Oh, just 30,000 yen.
Yeah, the way that she opens it, so like, ugh. So these people are doing whatever they can, and it's a little bit of a commentary, I guess, on kind of poor people and what they do to kind of survive. You don't get a sense that this is a family of people who are malicious in stealing. It's just like, we need to kind of survive. But it's also a sense of broken people. They kind of talk about that a little bit, because the young girl seems to have a lot of compassion in her. And the mother of the family, if we'll call her that, the wife, she says it's strange because, she's come from a family where they abuse her, and yet she still kind of cares about people. And that's not how we are.
Yeah, I remember that.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's a very important scene, I think. And also the scene when she's in the bath and she's got almost the same kind of iron burn on her arm. Yeah, maybe a little bit on the nose, I suppose, that it was that identical, but...
Well, it was diagonal and just as...
Diagonally.
Yes, diagonally.
The performance from the wife, I think, really steals the show. She is a really great actress in a lot of varying emotions, and certainly the standout scene, which I won't mention what it is, she's very emotional in it, but it is so believable because it's exactly what people do when they're emotional and crying.
Yes.
Very rarely will you see this in a film.
It was kind of a hold your breath kind of moment. Like, it was dragging on, but not dragging. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They hold that shot for so long, and I'm just thinking, wow, the stamina on her for just to keep doing that, and how natural, and she's looking into the camera as well.
Yeah,
when she's talking, so that really gets you.
It's a very personal moment, and
brilliant.
It's one of those pieces of acting where the actress kind of melts away, and you're just looking at a character and believing it completely.
Yeah.
And in most movies, you would have that as a kind of very dramatic shot where kind of the single tear rolls down, which people don't do. You don't let a tear roll down your face without blinking or doing anything. And so she's very much kind of... And
she's trying to rub it away before it even comes, because you can feel it.
Yes, exactly.
And it's just the way she's like looking away. It's like she's trying to contain it.
And she's in front of people, so she's like
and she's
conscious
waiting
of this.
to say something. And then she says something. And then the tears could come in again. And then she's kind of like containing herself, and then she says the same thing again. And it's just the way that she says is like, that's exactly what I would have said, or it just felt so natural, those words that she said. Yeah, and the words that she say aren't very poetic or kind of interesting or definitive. They're just kind of, they're words that a person would say, I think, in that situation. It's just like a kind of, it's not like you're watching this scene of her crying and then the payoff is some kind of profound line that changes the way that you look at things. It's just a human reaction. So I think that's one of the best parts of the film, and she was great. That's another memorable emotional scene. There was one in another Japanese movie we saw where
Cure.
a guy... Huh?
Cure.
Cure.
The film was called Cure.
Cure. Yes, yeah. Cure. I think you said Cure. It's British. Another emotional scene where it was so realistic and not overdone. It was over the top, but in the way that would happen if you saw what you saw. So it's just... And I want to give credit to Lily Frankie as well, because his characters are very kind of like... he's kind of a very kind of chirpy kind of character. He's always joking around and stuff. There's these little moments where his face drops a little bit, and you kind of really feel what's going on. Yeah. And so it's a very impressive performance as well. And then again, Kieran Kiki is great. I liked the younger woman as well. She doesn't have too much to do in the film. There is a kind of memorable scene, I guess you could say, where she works. We'll leave that where it is. And even the young girl, I thought that seemed like a nobody knows kind of performance, where it's a very natural, not too showy. The boy as well. And the boy, the boy was brilliant. Don't forget about the boy. He was the star of the film in a way. I was gonna get to that. He was great too. So it's one of those. It's an ensemble film with this cast of characters and a family, and they're all great. So before we get to spoilers, what would you say, like, final thoughts on the film? Kind of. No, it was great. Great. Okay, so I'm glad you enjoyed it. Me too. I was thinking about it during the after hour and a half into the movie. I was just thinking, wow, normally I would be like, oh, get it over with, but I didn't mind that it was that long. Even though we're short on time tonight. We are a bit short on time, so we'll get right into it. It's a great film. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. I loved revisiting it, but we'll get into some spoilers now.
Okay, now I want to ask you, I'm really intrigued to hear about this. At what point did you realize that this wasn't a real family? Or did you realize that from the beginning? Because for me, it took like an hour before I thought, oh, he isn't even their son. Like, that's...
I didn't realize that he wasn't their son until he asked him to call him dad.
Yeah, call me dad.
Because it's like, not yet. And I'm just like,
yeah.
Okay, so it's not his dad then, because it's not like, I'm not old enough to call you dad yet.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a strange kind of thing.
That was the first time, yeah. And then I was okay. And then he said like that he saved him from that car and stuff. I'm like, okay, so that's the second kid then. So I was thinking, the girl probably isn't family either.
Yeah.
And so I expected something to happen between her and the guy, which I'm glad didn't.
Yeah, so the kind of the kind of semi-adult woman in the family, she works at kind of a sex kind of place, I suppose, and you were worried that one of her customers was going to be the father, which it wasn't, thankfully, yeah. And there is a sex scene between the husband and the wife.
Well, we don't see the sex scene itself.
No, but like you can tell that it's building up to it, and you said like, I don't want to see this.
I didn't want to see that, no.
But I love...
Because the movie was great the way it was, and that would ruin it for me. I don't know what it is, but those kind of scenes, she's kind of like, no, I don't need to see that. I can see the build up to it. That's fine.
Yeah, no, I love the build up to it. Because it was almost like he was like...
She had a mouthful of noodles. I'm like, why do you stuff your face and then you go and kiss him? Do it after you swallowed everything.
I loved how timid he was. It was almost like, can I? Oh, I don't know if I'm allowed. You know, it's like, it was so funny. Like, it's such a, I don't know.
What's going on? What's happening? What do you do?
Yeah, and
then afterwards he's like, I did it. He's so happy, and she's like, and he's asking her, he's like, I did it, didn't I? And she's like, well. I didn't even break a sweat. And then when the kids come in and he's like, oh, it's raining. And she's trying to put her clothes on. What are you doing? It's raining. Go and have a bath. Go. It's raining. It's like, yeah, we know. They're soaking wet.
It's the kind of, sex scene that I like in films where you get the build up, you don't need to see the act of it.
No, because you know what's going to happen.
And then they're just lying there naked afterwards, and it's just very, I don't know, it was playful and fun, and I just, maybe there was a little bit too much of his ass crack on show in some of those shots, but, apart from that, that was kind of a highlight for me. And that kind of really strengthened their relationship in the film, I think, and that's kind of very integral to where the ending goes.
I wasn't even sure if they were a real couple up until then.
Right, yeah, you
because
could maybe think about
they
that.
said they were, but I was thinking, well, they probably just lived together.
Yeah.
And then that kind of confirmed it.
Yeah.
So.
What about the the grandmother? At what point did you question her even being related to any of them, if at all?
Well, she was in marriage, wasn't she? I never really. I know that you loved her performance. Mm-hmm. And everything like that, but she was probably the nail that stuck out throughout the whole thing for me in a way.
Mm-hmm. That's fine.
Maybe because of the way she was acting with the money and so on, I didn't feel that she really loved them that much.
No, but I think that's the point.
Yeah, so I didn't feel like there was something there until the beach scene.
Yeah, that's a brilliant scene.
And that's when I was like, oh, and then just that was the moment where I was just like, wow, this is good. It was just lingering on her and her facial expression. She was looking at them, and I knew that I saw love in her eyes looking at them as well. And when that shot, I was thinking it could just end there for me. Yeah, the movie could have ended, but then I realized she's gonna die.
But
and the next scene she was dead.
But I'm tearing up thinking about it when she just kind of mouths "thank you." That's a really because
that was like right. She's dying then.
But like,
so yeah, it was kind of predictable.
I think she did love them, but at the same time she was using them for kind of comfort, because clearly her family had not really, like at the very end the wife says, I didn't throw her away, someone else threw her away, I took her in. And so I think maybe, in a way, all the people in this family, they're kind of using each other for their own selfish means, but it just cancels each other out, and they're all
still a family.
They're still a family, yeah. But they're kind of
kids weren't theirs, but they were still family.
Yeah, and that's a theme that Kore-eda does deal with, is kind of what makes your family your family. Is it blood or is it something else?
But she was her grandmother, wasn't she?
No,
the young girl.
No, because that family was from the grandmother's husband's other wife. So she wasn't related.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a little bit of it. That's a bit of it. It's a complicated part of the plot. Is that.
Okay. Yeah. No, I see. So by blood, she wasn't.
No.
Okay.
So anyway, when they bury the grandmother, that's like what the fuck is going on? Like, because they're really trying to protect this kind of secret thing they've got going on.
And they still wanted the money. So
and they still wanted the money, and that's another part where they find her kind of hidden stash, and they're like, 14,
and funerals cost a lot of money, so.
Yeah, but that's so you can kind of understand it, but then there's still the morality of it that you question when they find her stash of money with her dentures. They're like, 13, 14, 15, and the young boy's looking at them kind of like. And that's when the boy really starts to kind of go like, well, he says that we steal from shops because the things in the shop don't belong to anyone yet. And then the next scene is kind of they're trying to break into a car now. And he's like, well, doesn't this belong to someone? And I think maybe that could have been done a little bit better. I think maybe the scene where the boy says, Dad says that we steal from shops because the things in the shop don't belong to anyone yet. But then the scene right after that pays off that line. So it felt a bit rushed almost. I would have put that a bit earlier in the film. Very minor thing. And
then with the bankrupt shop as well.
Yeah, every part of the film really works to the greatest story. Watching it, having known where it goes, I appreciate it so much more. And the last half an hour of the film is kind of what would you even call it? They've
fallen apart.
They've fallen apart. It's the fallout of everything where they get caught, basically. The young boy steals something, he gets hurt, goes to hospital, the whole thing falls apart. And they try and leave, and they get caught by the police, and there's this whole backstory. There's a moment when they bury the grandmother, and the husband is showering afterwards, and she comes in, his wife, and she says, like, that's the second person now that we buried. And it's like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, this suddenly got so dark. I mean, yeah, there's kind of the whole kind of morality of them taking this girl in and kind of quasi-kidnapping her, but this is something completely different.
Well, that could have been a natural death as well, and they just couldn't afford the funeral for that one either. So I didn't even strike that as weird.
No?
I was like, no, I was just like, well, they did it now, so why wouldn't they have done it before?
Right, but then
if it was natural causes.
Right, I think when I first watched it, I thought, is this their thing? They find like an old woman and they kind of, or an old person, they kind of...
Oh, no, I didn't think that. I was thinking
that was my first
they
thought.
had another person in the family.
In the family.
Yeah, because in the beginning, the boy says for the girl to forget her grandma. So I'm thinking, maybe there was someone else in the family and has been told to forget them.
Yeah.
And so I thought there was someone else in their family.
Yeah.
Until they get interrogated by the police, and it's clear that they actually killed someone. And that's when I go, ooh.
And then you get the interviews and kind of the investigation
and the crying scene, which was great.
And the crying scene, but then just like this, all characters being sectioned off, and like, going off, and like the younger girl, she goes back to the house and kind of looks at it and stuff. You see the young girl go back to her mother, and nothing's changed, which is fucking heartbreaking. And then you see the boy, he's now going to be sent off to live with other kind of orphans, I suppose, and go to school. And then you have kind of this...
Which is where the girl should have been sent off to, too.
Right, and then you get the final shot of the film, which is absolutely heartbreaking. And I feel like that could have happened. You could have had, seeing what happens to every character, then the final shot. But instead, we get this like mini short film at the end, like an epilogue for the father and the son. They spend this day and night together. And I feel like the film could have ended without that, but it adds so much more with that scene.
Oh, it didn't end with that scene.
No,
it ended with little girl.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, look, I can see where that scene with the father and the son could have not even been in the film, and it would still work. But I love that we have that kind of extra time to deal with the aftermath. When he spends a day with him, and they get real closure with each other, and it's not a nice closure. Nope. But it's kind of like a cathartic one.
I feel like it wasn't closure, because the way they were looking back at what had happened, that wasn't closure.
Yeah, but
he ran after the bus and he looked after him.
Because he wasn't ready to let go, but he knew that it was the right thing to do. When he said to him, like, "Listen, I can't see you anymore," and I don't think it's because he didn't want to see him anymore. It's because he knew it was the best thing for this boy, for him to not be in his life.
Yeah.
It's like the woman said in the prison. She's like, "We're not good enough for him."
Yeah.
Which is really horrible, and that scene when she tells him the details where he can find his true parents if he wants to, it's almost like her act of releasing him, and kind of saying forget about me in a way, which is really sad. But then there's always, it's a bit like Nobody Knows. You can kind of imagine what would happen afterwards. Would he go back to this kind of family that he had, and later on in life when he grows up, and would he try and find them again, or would he seek out his real parents? There's so many different ways that it could go. And even the moment at the end when he asks, his kind of dad, was it true that you were going to leave without me when I was in the hospital? And that scene is so great because it really holds on that pause.
Yeah,
is he going to tell the truth?
You can feel the thoughts in your head as well in that situation. Should I tell him the truth or should I just lie? No, because the right thing would be, because we have to part ways anyway, so it's probably best that I tell him the truth. And either way, I should tell him the truth, but I don't want to break his heart. Yes, that's right.
Mm.
And I'm just like, he said it. It's done now.
Yeah.
And the boy just goes, I see.
Yeah.
And then the boy says, I got caught on purpose. Which basically means I put your girlfriend in prison and I messed us up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's a rough ending. And then the fucking final scene when the girl is back exactly where she started. And she climbs up onto the kind of the railing of the balcony and she
doesn't climb up, she stands next to it.
There's like a box and she climbs onto the box so she can see over the top.
No, but it doesn't imply that she's going to jump, does it?
Definitely not. No, I'm just saying she.
But it looked like she saw someone.
No, to me, she just kind of looked out and was just, thinking of what she had or what she could have outside of this fucking hell that she's been sent back to. And the film ends, and it's such a gut-wrenching kind of,
David Lynch ending.
It's not a David Lynch ending because
you got to think yourself what's going to happen next.
Yeah, but there's no mystery to it in terms of like.
Well, her look looked like she. Is that maybe?
Yeah, I don't perceive it as her seeing anyone or any kind of like, no, I think that's it. She's there, and we can only hope that, I don't know, maybe welfare would check up on them again. But it seems like they very carelessly led. Yeah, it's really tough. So.
Why would they let her go back to parents who didn't even report her missing in the beginning?
Yeah.
So if they're stupid enough to do that, they're never going to check up on that girl again. It's just less paperwork for them to do.
Yeah.
No, it's not a true story, is it? So.
No, and you get a very antagonistic vibe from the people investigating in the end of the film. Very judgy kind of feel from them, even manipulative.
Yeah, they tell the boy right away they were going to leave without you. And then also with the woman who starts crying, it's like, did she ever call you mom? Mother?
Yeah, and then she's like, why
the way she asks is very like degrading.
Why? Well, the wife says, why do people think that you need to give birth to someone to be a mother? And then the interviewer, investigator says that, well, unless you're a mother, you can't feel like a mother,
Yeah, unless you've given birth, you're not a mother.
Yeah.
Basically, like, you can't even adopt anyone. You're not a mother if you do that either. And I'm just like,
so that's interesting. They really frame them antagonistically, which is an interesting choice.
And that's what hits her as well. That's when she starts crying.
But I love that about the film because throughout, we see them act questionably, in terms of their morals. Like the wife, she works at like a laundry cleaning place and she'll steal like little bits of gold from the guy's pockets and whatnot. So throughout the film, we learn to love these characters, but they're doing shady things. So it's different than a regular film like this, where all your main characters kind of are good people. Yeah. But it makes you question: does this make them bad people? There's lots you can think about with it. But how do you feel about the ending? Because it is such a downer, does it reflect on your feeling on the rest of the film?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't ruin the rest of the film. I just wish that it could have had a more resolving ending.
I mean, I would love to see him revisit this, like Richard Linklater style, in 10 years or something, and do some sort of a sequel. I'd love to see those characters again and see, what would happen to them next. It's certainly something you could do with their ages, and you could kind of, she would probably be out of prison at that point, and
yeah, she got given 5 years.
Would she go back with her husband again, and what would happen? I'd love to see a sequel to this, I really would, but anyway. I
can't believe she got 5 years for stabbing a man and burying him.
Well, she said it was in self-defense. I guess it's just her word, but...
yeah, still.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure
You
about
could say that about anything.
You could, yeah. I don't know. Anyway, the details about that aren't too, precious.
Maybe that's just his way of.
There's just
probably not how the law would be.
There's great scenes in the film. I just love how all the characters interact with each other, and yeah, this has really gone up in my estimation. So that'll be it for at least me and you talking about Kore-eda's films for Asian Cinema Season 2. Really glad that you watched some of them with me. Like Father, Like Son, though you didn't review it with me. Shoplifters, Nobody Knows, and Afterlife. So there's been quite and then there was also Maborosi, which you bailed on after about 40 minutes, so I'll have to do that one on my own. But I can understand that. That's a very different film, at least from the 40 minutes we saw than his other movies. Yeah. Anyway, so that's it for Shoplifters. Anything else you'd like to say?
No.
What would you rate it out of 10 out of interest? We rarely rate films anymore. I'd just be intrigued to see where you would place this.
8.5 maybe?
8.5, yeah.
8,
fairly high.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So there we go. That's it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one sometime.
It's alright by me. Apart from the fact he throws cans of Carlin into a tree. Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, he's really cool. But he's not quite as cool as you. 'Cause